Hello again everyone, welcome to my reflection on chapter 117 of Seraph of the End. We have a lot to work with in this chapter thankfully compared to last time, so this is going to be a nice longer video. So please strap yourselves in for that. As usual, please be mindful that this video will contain shipping and it will contain swearing. So if that's not your cup of tea, it may not be the video for you. And with that, please pull up a chair, make yourselves comfortable, pour yourself a good old cup of tea, and let's get into this reflection. First of all, I need to do a little bit of a love letter in this video to the king of the demons, Ashera. Forget Michaela. No matter what Kagami wants to tell me, Mika is not the king of the demons in this story. That title belongs to Ashera after this chapter because this chapter made it really click in my mind why I love Ashera so much as a character. And I'm not talking about the superficial love that I have for characters such as Yoichi. My little cinnamon roll, he's so cute and he's so evil. I love him. No, with Ashera, I've got a very sort of deep respect for his ideals and how he's written. Ashera to me is the character that represents independence of thought. He supports critical thinking and he stands up against manipulation. If you remember how Ashera's story started out when we're first introduced to him as Yu's demon, he warns you that part of his memories are locked away and that makes you susceptible to being manipulated, and Ashera makes it very clear that he doesn't appreciate that because it means that Ashera in turn can be manipulated. And he basically tells you, you need to think for yourself and you need to make sure that you're the one pulling the strings here because this is going to go very wrong otherwise. So from quite early on in the story, we know that that is what Ashera stands for. He's got a very strong will. Then we see the introduction of Shikama Doji, and Ashera's immediate instinct is not to trust this son of a bitch angel that's turned up, that's like an almighty monster, until of course he gets his memories back and he remembers, oh god, I made a deal with Shikama Doji way back in the day in order to save my sister. And at that point, when his memories come back, he then switches sides and he goes after Michaela in service of the grand plan. And if you remember, Shikama's grand plan supposedly was to recruit the black demons as apostles to supposedly save the world. And we'll come on to that in a bit, by the way, because that's some other bullshit. Ashera goes along with the plan and he tries to catch Michaela's soul. Until, of course, this chapter where Shikama throws him aside. And he does so very callously. And Ashera immediately joins the dots and he realises, oh my god, I've been manipulated. You don't care about me. You never have. Fuck you. He responds appropriately to being cast aside, unlike other characters I could mention in this story when terrible things are done to them and they forgive those people just without any consequences. Anyway, I won't get into that. And I really respect him because not only does he call Shikama out on the bullshit immediately, but he also then calls you out on his bullshit and he doesn't take you up on his offer because you, of course, is saying, I will fight for your cause, Ashera, just let me devour you, it'll be fine. And Ashera's like, no, I can see straight through you as well. You don't care about me. You never have. You and Shikama, you've only ever had eyes for Michaela. My point is that Ashera has always stood to me as a character in support of critical thinking, and he's consistent in that, and I love a character that demonstrates consistency. This is why I love Mika so much, because he's written consistently throughout the entire story. He's beautiful. So yeah, Ashera is the king, basically. Ashera is the king, and I really don't want him to die. Which brings me nicely onto my next point, which is what the hell is going to happen to Ashera? I'm very scared right now. I know other people are as well, because this chapter really did make it seem like Ashera is facing existential Armageddon, doesn't it? When Shikama talks about, letting you devour Ashera, he's just like, yeah, your usefulness to me is over. You can die now. That's basically what that line sounds like. You've outlived your usefulness, go and kill yourself. And that's certainly kind of implied to be how Ashera takes it, that it's in order for him to commit suicide, basically. Now, is that what it means? I don't know. What does devouring actually involve? It's never kind of been explained, has it? We see the word being thrown around in earlier chapters. There's one where Yu says to Mika, I'll devour you, you devour me, and then you can become my demon. So it may not be that devouring Ashera will mean that Ashera properly dies, hoping it's not like a permanent end of Ashera's consciousness or something. That would be terrible. Maybe it's more like a reverse possession, so the person that devours the demon gets to control the demon's powers, absolutely. Like maybe their consciousness is suppressed completely, their will is suppressed, so the person gets to use all of that power without any conditions attached. I'm hoping that's what it is, and maybe Ashera will then be sort of locked away inside you, with you having access to all of that power, and hopefully, like at the end, then he'll be brought back magically somehow under Yu's grand plan of bullshit, whatever that might be. But my point is that I think either way, whether Ashera is going to die properly, or if Yu is going to just like suppress Ashera inside him, I think this could be the last time we see Ashera for a very long time, and that makes me really sad. But of course there is the possibility as well that Ashera could win this fight, and I don't know where that would leave the story, because we always think, oh, the protagonist, like things are always going to be stacked in their favour, because at the moment obviously Yu wants to devour Ashera to get power, so that's why I think me and other people are kind of leaning towards the fact that, well, Yu is probably going to win this. But it would be an interesting twist if he doesn't, and I don't know where that would leave the story. So yeah, if anybody does think that Ashera might win this fight, let me know where you think that might go plot-wise if that does happen. Moving on from the king and on to Best Boy. Oh, Mika, I love you, but you're so frustrating. I'm sure that everyone listening is a proper devotee of Seraph of the End. We are all devout followers, and we all know the lyrics of our holy hymns, X, You and Scapegoat. So yeah, finish those lyrics off, guys. You are not my enemy. How does that line end? Remember that Scapegoat is written from Mika's perspective to you, so he is challenging you. You're not my enemy. I will let you prove me wrong. And I think that in chapter 117, we're really seeing you voluntarily taking up that enemy role in defiance of Mika in order to save his life. And it's so good to see. The only thing, and this is worrying some people, including myself to an extent, is that the language that Yu is using towards Mika, or Mikhaila I should say, is very dehumanizing. He's calling Mika Mikhaila throughout nearly the whole chapter, and that's really weird because Yu doesn't call him that ever. So why is he using Mikhaila? I think that it's a separation in Yu's mind between like the demon part of Mika and the human part which Yu loves and wants to protect. It's like maybe a psychological defense, not sure. Bearing in mind also that Yu is clearly under the sort of influence of his Seraph in this chapter, so that would make more sense that it's like the Seraph part of Yu speaking to the demon part of Mika, Mikhaila. As I say, the language is very dehumanizing and it's very forceful. It's like, I will make Mikhaila eat Ashera's desires, with no regard to Mikhaila's independent will. He does refer to Mika once in this chapter, and it's in the wake of a certain line from Ashera, where Ashera says that Yu only has eyes for Mikhaila. That's when he calls upon Mika in sword form, and he uses Mika and not Mikhaila to do it. It's almost like for a split second there his humanity shines through, and you really see that Ashera's words provoke an emotional response in him and remind him, oh yeah, this is why I'm fighting for the person I love. That's what I think that use of Mika means in that particular panel. But yeah, otherwise it's very much dehumanizing, and it's like Yu is not in his right mind in this chapter. He's gone off the deep end completely here, and he's willingly becoming that enemy in order to save Mika's life, which begs the question really, like, what's happening to our boy right now? What is happening to Mika? I think he might be locked up in the demon mind space, you know, like chained up or something, and next chapter we'll probably see him being horribly tortured, and every time Yu calls upon Mikhaila for power, like maybe he gets stabbed with a sword or something in the demon mind space. I would put nothing past Kagami. He loves to show us these torture scenes. Oh, best boy. So yeah, and talking about, you know, saving the person you love, I think it's really interesting that Yu never gets to use the word love in reference to Mika. Only Mika has used that word in reference to Yu. You know, we've had the word partner being used. In this chapter, we get that whole phrase about you only have eyes for Mikhaila. We've had the word obsession used. We've had Yu saying that I want to save Mikhaila so badly it feels like my chest will burst. Like, we get all of these really pretty but kind of ambiguous lines from Yu. And I think that there's like a reason for that. I think that Yu is meant to represent human love, which is flawed, selfish, small scale, focused on the individual. Whereas Mika is kind of the embodiment of what humans idealize as pure love, almost like divine kind of love. You know, it's selfless, it's the kind of love that lets go, it doesn't cling. There's that saying, isn't there? If you truly love something, then you let it go. And I think that that is why Mika gets to use the L word and you doesn't, because Mika's love is meant to be this like idealistic perfect form. And I'm not saying, by the way, that the story is actually supporting this, because what happens to Mika as soon as he utters the L word? He fucking dies. He dies. He dies in the name of love, because that standard of love is not appropriate for a human being. And that is what Yu is saying in this chapter. You know, when he challenges Ashera about Ashera's regrets in cursing his sister, he's like, no, you did the human thing there. You did the thing that anybody would do. It was selfish, yes, but it was a human expression of love. Like, above all else, at least that kind of love is honest. We see Seraph again and again warning us about, you know, people that espouse like these grand ideals, these grand plans, claiming to be so benevolent. Looking at you, Shikama Doji. Looking at you, Guren. Oh, Mr. I choose humanity. God, did we all not cringe at that line in chapter 114? Guren extending his hand like he's the saviour of mankind. Like, fuck off, Guren. And on the flip side, you've got Shikama, who has his own little band of loyalists, doesn't he? He has the demon apostles, and he says to them, I need you to help me avert the catastrophe that looms in the far future. You've got two characters here that are very similar. They're both speaking in these very grandiose, apocalyptic terms to their band of followers. It's almost like a cult leader. That's how I can best sort of describe it, because the cult leader is always trying to tell the followers that they alone have the path to salvation, and that the disciples just need to follow along and not ask questions, because the cult leader knows best. The cult leader is acting in everyone's best interest. The cult leader loves them. He loves you guys. Like, Guren loves you, remember? Shikama Doji, he loves you. He doesn't want a catastrophe to happen, you know? These guys very clearly have everyone's best interests at heart. But they don't, do they? You got Guren, who clearly is interested in saving his squad because they have that 10-year time limit hanging over their heads, don't they? And then you've got Shikama Doji, who only cares about reviving Mikaela. Now, I know that some people have been thinking that Shikama might be telling the truth about averting this catastrophe and that he might have truly noble intentions. I'm kind of leaning towards no on that. I kind of think that it was just cover to get the black demons on side to then capture Mikaela's soul. I had that thought a while back, and it's kind of been reinforced by Ashera's reaction in this chapter where he's like, oh my god, I've been manipulated. Yeah, I kind of do feel now that this was all just to get the black demons to dance to Shikama's tune, capture Mikaela's soul, drive him into the arms of Yu. Then maybe Yu and Mika is going to become some horrible divine demon angel super being who fucking knows what they're going to end up as, and it's all part of Shikama's plan. And I think that if there's going to be any saving the world going on, like averting this mysterious catastrophe, I don't think that's the main goal of Shikama. I think that's just like a happy coincidence. For example, maybe, you know, by foiling Guren's plan, if Shikama's plan succeeds, it means that Guren's can't. And, you know, if Guren's plan succeeds, maybe it will actually doom everybody, which seems quite fucking likely, to be honest. So yeah, bring back Mikaela, Guren's plan doesn't work, happy days, we've averted a catastrophe. But that wasn't the aim of the plan, was it? The aim of the plan was to resurrect Mikaela. Shikama has a personal interest, and that is what he's pursuing. He's not pursuing the grand goal, he's pursuing the personal aim, which might have a happy consequence as a result. It's the same with Guren and his reviving humanity plan. Like, yeah, great, you're trying to revive humanity. I kind of support that, like, as an idea, like you're trying to right the wrong that you've done. But on the other hand, that's not why he's doing it. He actually just wants to revive his squad mates who have the timer ticking over their heads, right? If Shinya and the others couldn't be saved, I don't think Guren would give a shit about the rest of humanity somehow. Basically, everybody in this story is exactly the same. They all have a personal interest. They all have one person that they value above all others. And that's the person that they're going to protect come hell or high water. For Guren, it's Shinya primarily, and his squad kind of in the background. Then you've got Cruel, who obviously only cares about Ashera, and Ashera only cares about Cruel. Shikama only cares about Mikaela. Yu only cares about Mika, and Mika is no exception here. Mika has Yu. Yu is the person he loves. He is his priority. We all know this. And Mika, as per chapter 93, he wants to be with Yu. That's his like honest desire, his human desire deep down. But I think the difference with Mika compared to the other characters is that he is the most dishonest about what he wants. His self-hatred outweighs his self-interest, but he doesn't like to admit that. And we kind of see it time and again in the story. At the beginning of the story, he refuses to drink the children's blood, and as we know, like, that causes Mika terrible pain. Obviously there is a part of Mika that genuinely doesn't want to harm these poor children, but fundamentally Mika doesn't want to become a monster. That's why he doesn't drink. Likewise, now in the current chapters, he doesn't want to be brought back at the expense of reviving humanity, because Mika feels that he is not worthy. And again, like we see in the earlier chapters, like, Mika recognises that human resurrection is against the natural order, like it's a moral sin. But really, it's the fact that he doesn't feel worthy to be brought back. If you compare, like, Mika to Guren, I think it's really interesting, because Guren carries a lot of self-hatred too. We've seen that. But Guren is more honest about the fact that he is just following his own desires at this point. Like, he has nailed his colours to the mast. He is sticking with this resurrection plan. His self-interest, his desires, they got the better of Guren a very long time ago, I think. Whereas Mika kind of tries to hold himself to this higher standard of doing things, and he always tells other people that he's doing it for a noble cause. So if you look at the refusal to drink the children's blood in Sanguinem, he says that he won't break vampiric law by drinking directly from a human. And likewise now with the whole thing about reviving humanity, Mika says, you know, the numbers are too different, like, you have to pick the right choice, you have to pick humanity over me. But fundamentally, I think what Mika is trying to do is to harm himself, because he is trying to bring punishment upon himself. And at the same time, he's trying to convince himself and other people that he's doing the right thing out of love. Namely, he's trying to say to you, look, this is in your interest to do this, you know, it's in your interest to bring everyone else back. This is the right thing to do. This is how I express my love for you, by dying. And you's not having any of it. God fucking bless him. You is not having any of it. I'm sure that you has looked into Mika's heart and he's like, Mika, this is not what you fucking want deep down. You want to be with me, I want to be with you, we're fucking going for it, you know? And as a result, I really hope that the story, in the end, it lets you actually use that word love, because if he does represent human love, then it follows that he should be allowed to say the word, right? He should be allowed to say the word, that it's not a dirty word, that humans can love each other, even if that love is imperfect, it's flawed, it's selfish. Fuck it, it's the best we've got, right? And now I suppose I need to talk about that line. I need to talk about the line that had all of us screaming and slamming desks and giggling like crazy. That line, you've only ever had eyes for Michaela. So obviously it's a shippy line, of course it is. It's linking back into Yu's obsessive streak towards Mika and all of these other wonderfully ambiguously romantic lines that Kagami loves to use for Yu. So it's another one of those. There were people that were going as far to say that this has made it canon. I wouldn't say so. Sorry to burst your bubble, guys. But there are a couple of things with this line. So it's true that that use of having eyes for Michaela, that particular way of saying it, having eyes for someone, in native English, like you don't say that unless it's romantic. But the thing with that line, to soften it, what Kagami has done is something quite clever. He's also put Shikama Doji in there with you, because the full line reads, the both of you have only ever had eyes for Michaela. So the both in that context is talking about Shikama Doji and you. That doesn't change the way that it's phrased. The way that it's phrased, I think, is clearly designed to make the shippers go, oh my God. And Kagami knows exactly what he's doing. But yeah, I think that the use of both of you in that line is to give plausible deniability to people that want to close their eyes to the ship tease, which fair enough, you do you. But what I would point out as well is that I think the emphasis is clearly on Yu's obsession in that line. The way that Ashera initially refers to you, he says you and then corrects himself to both of you. So he's initially thinking of you specifically. And when we actually look at the panel, Ashera is staring at you in concern. He's not looking at Shikama. Shikama's there, but he's clearly like a secondary consideration when Ashera is levelling this accusation at you. So yeah, it's designed as a ship tease line. It's a very good one, but I don't think it's a canonization of the ship at all. And bear in mind also that this line comes from Ashera to you. This is not you speaking for himself about his feelings for Mika. This is Ashera making a comment about you. And oh my God, like, don't get me wrong, I trust Ashera's assessment of people more than I trust people's assessment of themselves in this story. If I'm going to go to anyone for a good assessment of character, I would go to Ashera Maru. Because he sees through bullshit like it's his day job. He would have been a fucking lawyer. He would have been a fucking lawyer if he'd actually like lived in a normal setting, because he can see through bullshit and he can create bullshit. Like that's what he does. He's a demon, and he also sees into the hearts of human beings, and he knows exactly what's up. So yeah, like I'm sure that this line is very deliberate, and it's a very good ship tease line, and I'm sure that's why it's in there. But yeah, not quite a canonization, until I hear it from the horse's mouth from Yu himself. I'm not going to say anything is canon. On to the next point. Is our boy Yu being manipulated horribly? So again, this question of manipulation has been raised, and Yu has been very, very determined in this chapter in saying that no, I am not being manipulated. Ashera, I'm going to devour you. This is part of my own choices, my own plans, but of course we know that Shikama wants Ashera to be devoured. So is Yu actually acting of his own volition in this chapter? Is he being horribly manipulated from all those millennia ago when he made that pact with Shikama Doji? Who fucking knows? Who fucking knows? But yeah, I just think it's interesting, like the fact that he is so certain in this chapter that he's not being manipulated when there's like, you know, no grounds for him to believe that from what it looks like. Like he doesn't seem to have his memories back yet. Like how does he know that he's not being manipulated? Surely he doesn't know. So that is set up for him to have the rug pulled out from under him, I think. Or the other possibility is that he is actually remembering, or maybe he has fully remembered, because that use of Mikaela that I talked about earlier, being a dehumanizing way to refer to Mika's demonic powers, it could be an indication that he might have remembered the past as well. And that thing about I won't give up even if I die, if that is a clone reference, maybe he's remembered the clones as well. So maybe those flashbacks that we've seen a couple from ancient Greece recently, haven't we? We've seen chapter 113. We saw Yu standing over Mikaela's coffin and the deal that he made with Shikama to bring Mikaela back. Maybe those are in fact Yu's memories coming back. Maybe that's it. In which case then he wouldn't be being manipulated, right? Because he would remember the past and he'd be making this decision regardless. So yeah, I'm still not sure if this is Yu acting out of his own desires and such, or if this is just all part of Shikama Doji's plan, like Shikama Doji thinks it is. Oh, it's so complicated. Why is this story so fucking complicated? Oh, and speaking of Shikama Doji saying that this is all part of his grand plan, he was a bit tactless in this chapter, wasn't he? Saying to Ashera that your usefulness is over and that Ashera can just go and kill himself. Like, why would you say that? He must be either really, really arrogant, like so arrogant that he thinks that Ashera is no threat to him, or he actually wants Ashera to fight Yu for some reason, and that's also part of his grand plan. I think it might be the former, to be honest, and that he just thinks that Ashera is beneath him. Ashera being a mere human once upon a time that was turned into a vampire. He probably just doesn't even recognise Ashera as a threat, I think. That might work against Shikama Doji in the end, because if Yu is telling the truth in this chapter that he will devour Ashera and take on Ashera's desires, to protect Cruel, then Shikama might find in the end that he's made a mistake by disregarding Ashera in this way if Yu decides to take up Ashera's cause and he means what he says, and it wasn't just Yu trying to manipulate Ashera in this chapter. We'll see. And now I think on to the predictions then for next chapter. So, I mean, why do I even make predictions? Because they're never right. They're never right. I thought that Ashera was going to give up his power to Yu, like after testing Yu or something. But no, they are clearly just at odds with each other, and there is going to be no reconciliation here. Yu's going to have to take the power from Ashera if he wants it. So yeah, my last prediction was completely fucking wrong. Predictions this time, let's have some fun with this. I think it all depends on where Saito and the Vampire Squad, what did we call them? The BBB, the blood-sucking bastard battalion. It all depends on where they're going in that truck, doesn't it? We know that Shikama is currently pinned to that truck. We haven't been able to see where they're going, but I guess it's maybe safe to assume that they're going to go towards Guren in the underground bunker. Maybe we're going to get a war breaking out 15 floors underground. That will be so fun. Get a bit of interference from Shikama, maybe in that fight. Maybe Shikama will get to meet Mika in the very near future. Maybe Shikama can convince Mika that it's okay, son. It's okay. You can live too. Fight for yourself, Mika, darling. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe that's it. Maybe the BBB go to where the family is hiding out, and maybe the BBB and the family get into a massive fight. Maybe Shikama Doji finally gets to have his father-son time with Mika, and maybe he'll be able to snap Mika out of his constant state of suicidal tendencies. That would be nice. Oh, and that's just reminded me, a commentator on the React for this chapter pointed out the fact that I was contradicting myself in my reaction. Because I said on the one hand that Shikama's got this bullshit plan going on, and I'm, criticising Shikama Doji, and then on the other I'm like, but I don't want Mikaela to die, and I don't care what it takes, Mikaela mustn't die. So therefore I'm on Shikama Doji's side. I kind of am, I suppose. At this moment in time, I think I kind of am, to be fair. Basically, I'm sort of thinking the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and I know that I do not want Guren's plan to succeed. That's the plan I know most about at the moment. I don't fucking like any of it. Like, Mika's gotta fucking die. We're gonna bring back all of these dead people that have been long dead for 10 years. It's just gonna be a mess, Guren's plan. So I do not support that. And if Shikama's plan is in opposition to Guren's plan, that means that I am temporarily on Shikama's side, at least. Where I think I'm gonna have a problem is that I don't know what version of Mikaela Shikama wants to bring back to life. I think that it might be the ancient Seraph Mika, and who fucking knows if that's gonna affect our current Mika's soul. Who knows what that will do to the poor boy. He has been through enough. I want human Mika, as he is, the beautiful soul that he is, to just be left the fuck alone. Or if I have to choose a resurrection plan, let's go with Yu's, which is to bring Mika back as a human. That's the plan that I am most on board with, even though I don't even know what Yu's plan fucking entails. I know nothing about Yu's plan. I just know that that's what he wants. He wants to bring Mika back as a human. So yeah, that's the side that I'm basically on. I'm on Yu's side of bringing Mika back as a human being. Therefore, I'm currently kind of on Shikama's side because I want Mika, to not die in the near future. And I'm very firmly against Guren. So that's where I stand at the moment. Oh dear. Let me know what you guys think about this chapter. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments below. You can always connect me on social media. I will put the links in the description below. And with that, guys, you take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.